Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Malika Mridul, and I will be the host of today's webinar on behalf of TNV Academy. For this webinar, we are glad to have Mr. Ajay Bajpai with us as the guest speaker. The topic with which he is here today with all of us is Statutory and Regulatory Requirements Management System. Our distinguished speaker, Mr. Ajay Bajpai, has done his bachelor's in engineering in metallurgy. He is also a lead auditor in ISO standards 9001, 14001, 45001, 37001, 22000, 27001, 13485, 22301, and 50001 respectively. He has an industrial experience of more than 15 years as an implementer of management system standards and 25 plus years in the field of auditing and training. He has been imparting training through the medium of webinars, seminars, live sessions, online and offline mode to a number of organizations, entrepreneurs, and individuals on various topics related to ISO terminologies and conducted 4,000 plus man days of third party audits globally. That's enough from my side. I request Mr. Ajay Bajpai now to please take over and start the webinar.
Thanks, Malika, for the brief and good introduction. Good morning to you all for the discussion on statutory and regulatory requirements, which is applicable for most of the management systems. So, we are having a common discussion for this, and we need to understand that how it needs to be implemented at the client's end when they are documenting, preparing, reviewing, conducting their own internal audit, and when they get ready, they come for the certification. Okay. So the role of it is applicable, as I said, both for internal auditor as equally for second party auditors and similarly for third party auditors. So what is important that the role of audit team is important in understanding the statutory and regulatory requirements. That is the key point of discussion. So normally the statutory requirements are the ones which are developed, documented, and asked for implementation by the country heads, by the parliaments, by the governing boards of the countries. They are the ones who are formulating and asking all other team members who for whom it is applicable to implement it. And then regulations are made by the state boards, districts, other regions based upon the statutory requirements which come from the top, from the parliament, from the sansads, from the maybe the prime minister's office, or from the president's office, and so on. Once they are signed, they become statutory requirements, and regulations are being implemented by the second and third line of the states and the regions and the countries and various other boards which are operating in the country and so on. So what is it? The next step? Documentation needs to be prepared for that to meet the requirement of statutory and regulatory. For products and services, it is applicable for various products. It is also applicable for various kind of services. So the documents, how to be reviewed needs to be understood by the teams. Okay. Next step will be review the applicability of statutory regulatory requirements. How they are applicable if we are into a manufacturing of fans, maybe electrical fans or electrical motors, what is the applicability? Or if we are into food industry, what are the applicability for our kind of organization who is handling products and also services at times. So then we have to see how we review. There are requirements which are directly product related. As I said, electrical motors or food items, rice, or for example, crops are available So what is the applicability for that? That needs to be understood and reviewed here, that yes, these are the requirements which are applicable for my organization where when I am into manufacturing of automotive products. So different kind of industry, different kind of products will have different requirement. Automotive research institutes are there, automotive industry guidelines are there, you know, the German Motor, Ford, Chrysler, uh, Maruti Suzuki, they all have their different requirements. So they needs to be understood for a automotive manufacturing units or the supply chain activity in the automotive sector. So once they are reviewed against the products, then we look at what are the requirements for various standards. If an organization is going for a food safety certification, they will go for ISO 22000, supporting standards will be there. Then there will be country requirements, regional requirements. Then they are going for maybe FSSAI certification, food safety certifications, another core industry certification. So this needs to be reviewed with respect to what type of certification they are going and what type of standard they are going for. If they are going for occupational health management safety certification, the statutory and regulatory requirement may be different from top of the country. If we are into say maybe Bangladesh, or maybe we are into the UK or USA, they have different requirement from the top of the country level requirement. Then the state level requirements will come, and then the product specific requirement will come for statutory and regulatory requirement to be complied with. So once we reach this level, then we go further. How we are planning it? There are various requirements when we are into manufacturing sector particularly. There are various kinds of factory acts which are applicable. So manufacturing industry has to understand the factory acts, and then they have to relate it with documentation of SNR into their system. They also have to review the regional requirements as applicable. A particular state will have a different requirement. So it depends upon which state the organization is operating, what are the state regulations. Sometimes the for a particular requirement, maybe when we had the COVID, district level requirements have become different. District, hospitals have different requirements. So depending upon the usage, sometime depending upon the environmental condition, the requirements are changing. So they need to be complied with respect to the state regulations, district regulations, and so on. For example, in education sector, we have got UGC requirements, then we have got the boards requirement. The school authorities have different requirement depending upon what region, what districts they are operating at times. So the study needs to be done with respect to all this. Country specific requirement we have discussed, they needs to be reviewed, which will vary from product to product, service to service. Then we have got the requirements coming from customers. Customers have got some specific requirement which has come from statutory regulatory, but to add, there are specific requirements. Sometimes the final customers have got some other requirement. The end user have got some specific requirements which needs to be in line with the SNR. So they needs to be moving into the planning direction that way. So now we need to give training to the team. When we have a client who is implementing it into manufacturing or service industry, his team needs to be trained. Their concept should be clear. Whether we are now getting into a first party, second party, third party audit, the applicability while documenting needs to be understood, and it needs to be documented accordingly to meet the requirements of food safety requirement, health safety requirement, medical requirement, or particular usage of the item when we are into a hospital, medical industry. And now, when we have done the training, concepts are clear, it is being implemented. So, what to audit needs to be understand. When we are into internal audit or even second party or third party audit, we are not going to audit the requirements. The requirements are understood, applicability is understood, and they are implemented by the client team, the statutory regulatory team, the legal team. They have documented and implemented this system. We as an auditor have to see how they have identified, applicability has been clarified, how their concepts are clear, and the audit of this activity is actually done by statutory and regulatory boards. We need to verify their reports, we need to verify what they have audited and how the tracking of the legal requirements with respect to SNR is done into the organization. So auditing plan is needs to be very clear with the auditors. They will not ask for the various uh, regulation requirement, for example, noise level, vibration monitoring being done by the organization. Their levels are defined. It has been verified. So now we only have to see how the tracking is done, how the record maintenance is done, how the due dates are being verified by the MR or the coordinating team, so that the dates are not going out of the this thing expiry dates. Within the due date they are being done. Pollution controls needs to be done. So for a particular machine, the exhaust level needs to be checked. So they are being done by the company. They have got the test reports. It has also been verified by the legal department. So we need to verify how the records, how the reports are being tracked. So we have to, as an auditor, do the verifications and checking of the report with respect to statutory and regulatory requirement. For example, for food safety in India, FSSAI is the department who is controlling the requirements. So they come, they check, and they issue the certificate, yes, that compliance is there. So we as an auditor, when we go as an internal auditor or external auditor, we need to verify, yes, the visit has been done. So we only see those records and we see the FSSAI certificates and related reports only we see. We are not supposed to go into the details of how the checking has been done, what parameters has been verified, how. That is the job of the statutory regulatory boards and the compliance team. So we have to verify only the report which is submitted, which is verified, which is tracked by the legal team. Go next. So we have to very carefully review the implementation of statutory and regulatory compliance. This is a typical area, so we need to go step by step as we are going into different slides and discussing. The concept needs to be clear. So now ask questions from the implementers. You know, we are not supposed to ask questions from the boards or anybody else. We are asking questions from the implementers, from the legal department team, how they have implemented their own SOP, their own procedures, their own what they have stated into their manual or other documentation with respect to statutory and regulatory requirements. Then we as an auditor, we review the documentation available with the implementers, and we verify how the approval files are maintained, how legal file is maintained. Many organizations call it as a legal register. So what all are the identification done for the requirements, and who are the approvers for that, and how the tracking is done. When was the checking done? when were the parameters verified, any due dates are checking. So that we have to verify as internal auditor, second party or third party auditors. Also, the documentation and the system is on in the company. So they must have conducted internal audit. One or two internal auditor audits have been done before coming for the stage one or stage two audit, depending upon the situation and the status of the company. So we as an auditor, whether we are internal doing the third internal audit or second internal audit, or we are into stage one audit, we review the internal audit reports with respect to the documentation and these tracking processes. We also have a look as an auditor at the external audit reports with respect to statutory and regulatory requirements. So we only review the correctness of the reports, how they are being maintained, how they are being tracked, whether in hard copy or soft copy. Organization is also making a summary of these reports, when they are going for different monitoring activities, then the summary is being prepared. So that summary also, as an auditor, we review, yes, what are the action points as an organization. Then, as an organization who has implemented, they are looking at the performance of the statutory and regulatory report, meeting requirements, and as auditor, we also see the performance monitoring, how they do. So we review their performance monitoring method with respect to all these activities in compliance to statutory and regulatory requirements. Once this is done, then we go further into the analysis of this particular requirement. So an study is done as an organization. The organization have maintained, they have got statutory regulatory objectives which they are laid down as per the criteria, and target charts are there. So when implementation starts, they go into different groups, cross-functional teams. The legal requirements are being met by legal department. HR teams are involved at times. Maintenance teams are involved. QA, QC teams are involved, depending upon what kind of testing or what kind of requirements is applicable to meet statutory regulatory requirement. For example, food industry, what are the requirements, what tests are to be done. So lab team will be involved. If we are into health and safety, medical team is involved. So it depends upon what products, process and supply chain our scope is coming. Accordingly, the review is done. Then we have implemented the system. So we need to keep on monitoring the implementation of the process. The tracking is on as in small group or individual, depending upon the situation and that particular time, what is the level of implementation. The monitoring is going on of the implementation of various regulations which we have understood in last discussions. Then this entire process needs to be addressed through internal auditing into the client's place first. The client is going to verify, the client teams are going to verify how the implementation of this process is done into the organization. And then when internal audit of this process is being conducted, we see what has been done into the first round of internal audit. And when we are as a certification body conducting the audit, in stage one audit, we review how the internal audit of this process has been done by competent and trained team who understand the requirement of this process. It is important that they have been trained. They are internal auditors, that is very good, but they are requiring to gain additional knowledge to audit this particular function. They are given, the checklist, the standards, the acts at times by the coordinator and representatives of the team, so that they understand how to audit this particular function and how the objectives and target are met with. Are they in line with the due dates, the performance, the tracking, legal register is being maintained, legal file is being maintained, either hard or soft copy, whatever way, or organizations have the the SAP ERP system or other apps and software to control their internal audit and statutory regulatory processes. So they follow it accordingly and they verify, and the results are now there coming from the internal audit. So these internal audit results will now be reviewed into the management review meeting. The management review meeting will discuss the statutory and regulatory, the legal registers, the legal reports, the reports coming from the statutory regulatory boards, what is the status, when was their visit done, what more compliance point needs to be done, what test parameters needs to be verified further. So all this is discussed into the management review meeting, and the minutes are developed, plans are made for further actions, and implementation is done for the future actions. Yes, this machine needs to be further improved upon, this action needs to be further change, this parameter, this noise value, this chemical test is not meeting the requirement, this medical device does not meet the requirement of the medical device parameters 13485 requirement at times depending upon the standards and the supporting standards and legal requirements we have. So all this implementation is planned further for implementation into the organization, and the team which has been decided, the individuals which have been decided for further actions, that monitoring is being done by the coordinators as it is defined into the responsibility and authority for those particular actions with respect to the target dates, target weeks, target months, and so on. So once we are able to complete this exercise, this improvement into this analysis of statutory and regulatory requirements automatically comes, because we are always following the plan, do, check, and act. We conduct internal audits, we conduct management review, and we track the implementation. So the improvement into the statutory and regulatory requirement status is automatically seen into the client, organization, and into the auditing system and management review system and functions. So once we do it, then we have links for training and certification. We are conducting trainings under exemplar global approval accredited training. We have got 80 plus training courses. Our website can be TNV website can be further studied, and TNV has an approval from UAF under IAF accreditation along with that. So websites are very informative, and further study can be done on our website to understand more requirements. We also have got our other company TNV System Certification Private Limited with IAS accreditation, again with IAF into applicable with that. So we can go for certification in the certification body, and training programs we conduct under TNV Academy, Learning Without Limits. So all these websites are further studied for gaining more knowledge, acquiring more understanding on legal requirement, statutory regulatory requirements. All right, so this is what, as a summary, I'll just have a review which we have discussed. So these are applicable for various management systems. Role needs to be understand, documentation needs to understand for various products and services, applicability, then product related requirement, then certification and specific standards requirement needs to be understood by the teams. Factory Act, regional requirement, state requirement, country specific requirement. Some requirements are from specific customer side, from sometimes the final customer side. Specific requirements are coming for implementation in line with the statutory regulatory requirements. So they need to be understood and documented accordingly. And training in another very important point. The legal teams, the internal auditors team, the external auditors team with respect to SNR needs to be trained so that they are conceptually clear. Applicability is understood, what needs to be audited is understood, then how auditing is to be done needs to be understood, then what needs to be reported needs to be understood by the team. They should be reporting only the relevant documentation, relevant process, relevant tracking into their report after the conduct of the audit. Then how to ask question we have discussed from the implementers. We will not ask from the implementers how you are, particularly doing the activity. We are looking at the legal files and registers, and implementers may be different. So it depends upon the file. We will review the file as an auditor, and we will verify the tracking method of the implementers. Testing may be done by another agency. So we only have to review the reports. Internal reports we have to review, external audit reports we have to review. Then all these reports will have been summarized by the organization who is implementing. So we review the summary of the reports. We see how they have looked at the performance of the statutory regulatory requirements. So this performance monitoring we review overall, and then we go for various discussions, in a small group and cross-functional team. We monitor the implementation of the actions. Then effective internal audit is done, further followed by management review meeting at a planned interval, 6 monthly, annually, quarterly, whatever the organizations have decided to review the overall system and statutory regulatory requirements and objectives. And they are implemented for further actions and future actions. And then the certifications we have discussed. So this is what I thought I'll discuss today. If you have any questions, you are most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bajpai, for such a vast and good knowledge about the topic. I am really glad and benefited by the knowledge which you have shared with us today. I am sure our participants must have enjoyed the context of today's webinar too. I thank Mr. Bajpai once again on behalf of TNV Academy for giving his valuable time and accepting our invitation to be the guest speaker for today. I also thank all the participants for taking out time joining us in the webinar today. That was it, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to share with you all. Thank you.